It has certainly been a glorious spring in spite of the pandemic and our confinement, seeming like our permanent confinement to quarters. First of all, it was the yellow tulips and the purple hyacinths, and then the indescribable scent of lilacs, and now it is the absolutely drop-dead gorgeous azaleas. The flowering trees have now turned that soft green, misty green, and later on it'll deepen in color as it matures in the summer. And the grass is also so green. The exuberant weeds, which are always my nemesis, are popping up along with the flowers. And contrary to the song in Carousel, in our area, it is May and not June that is busting out all over. And this year, we've seen another side to spring as cities and populated areas have been shut down by COVID. Has anyone seen the video clip of the wildlife returning to the empty streets in major cities all over the world? There is a kangaroo hopping through the empty streets in Adelaide, Australia, and seals romping in front of a shuttered mall in Chile, a croc walking along an empty patio in South Carolina, monkeys in public swimming pools in Mumbai, lions on a private golf course in South Africa, and sheep playing on a merry-go-round in a playground in the United Kingdom. It's kind of like a who left the dogs out moment. But we know who left the dogs out. It was the pandemic. And the pandemic has made a lot of us see and perhaps understand for the first time that humanity shares this earth with the coyotes who were roaming the area under the Golden Gate Bridge in California and the rhino chasing a customer away from a snack bar in Nepal. The presence of wild animals in human spaces kind of rubs our noses in our own importance. If the human race disappears for some reason, nature will go on, basically without even missing a beat. Nature doesn't need human beings at all. In fact, all of nature, the animals, the earth, the seas, the atmosphere, would actually benefit by our absence. Taming nature is simply not part of nature's repertoire. It appears only in ours. And we might be able to live without fossil fuels or our devices or our lawn fertilizers, but we can't live without clean air and clean water and trees and flowers, and neither can our fellow creatures. You might call it, borrowing words from another musical, the circle of life. The so-called primitive religions recognized and honored the circle of life. The Greeks believed in water nymphs, the Celts in holy trees, the Irish in fairies. American Indians believed that the earth itself was so holy that no one could actually own it. For them, an injury to the earth was a cardinal sin. And it is from the Greeks that we get the idea of Mother Nature, Gaia, the personification of the earth. In Rome, she was known as Terra, the earth. In ancient Greece, an oath sworn to Gaia was the most binding of all oaths. Christianity, like Judaism before it, did its very best to stamp out the worship of what it deemed were false gods, even as they replaced them with a pantheon of their own. The God of the Christians and the Jews was a living God, the one true God, while the gods of the pagans were nothing but powerless graven images or bits and pieces of nature whose worship was meaningless to the Jews and the Christians anyway. No one ever bothered to ask the pagans, whose gods were unceremoniously replaced, what they believed. The victorious Christians, with their belief in the one true God, never quite grasped the idea that all people have a piece of the truth about the vastness that we call God. That one true God harnessed the power of empire and marched across the world, wreaking havoc wherever it went. The gods of nature, most particularly Mother Earth, got lost in the shuffle. According to Genesis, human beings own the world and everything in it. It was human beings who got to name what was valuable and what was not. And Mother Earth was only valuable for what could be done to her or extracted from her. Mother Earth, unlike God, their father, was not a living God. And so now we must look at the wreckage around us, at the degraded environment, the waterways running with toxic chemicals, the poisoned skies, the mass extinction of species, and now the coronavirus, which has killed almost 80,000 people in America. And we wonder, my God, is that what you really wanted us to do when you supposedly gave human beings made in your image dominion over the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, over the cattle, the wild animals, and every creeping thing on earth? As you know, I changed all the readings to reflect the observance of Mother's Day. And the first reading is not as familiar as it should be, although I recall one of my kids singing a song in first grade called "His Banner Over Me is Love." I don't know if the rest of you remember that. But the woman in Revelation, our second reading, is usually believed to be Mary. However, this image, the image of the woman clothed with the sun, crowned with stars, standing upon the moon while actively giving birth, is my very favorite, indeed my only image of God, a God who is continually in the act of creating the heavens and the many earths and everything in them. The body, her holy body, this body of God, extends across the lengths and the heights and the depths of the universe, into the deepest black hole and the biggest exploding nova. Spiraling galaxies trickle through her open and outstretched hands. This birthing, star-dusted God would not, I repeat, have given dominion to one part of her creation over another. Everything is precious. Everything is beautiful in her sight. One small but important part of her sacred body is the world, our world. To stretch a metaphor, even if it might sound a bit sacrilegious, whatever we do to that body, which includes all of us, the animals, indeed nature herself, we do to her our birthing God. We are one in being with this vast, unimaginable God, in whom all things are, were, and will be made, world without end. A long time ago, like most of you, I learned the catechism. The first question in first grade was, who is God? And the answer was, God is the supreme being who made heaven and earth. The second question was, where is God? And the answer was, God is everywhere. I took those answers to heart, to the point of being called a pantheist in high school by one of my religion teachers. Of course, the teacher's opinion didn't change my mind at all, because indeed, God is everywhere and in everything. So I now recognize myself as a panentheist, because I believe that the divine has left her fingerprints upon the entire universe. God really does pervade everything and everybody. And pantheism is true as well. Reality is divinity. In God, all things are sacred and beloved. Nothing is other. Nothing can be permanently cast into the darkness. In times of trouble, the hands that hold the galaxies will also hold ours. As we human beings continue to pave paradise and put up a parking lot and kill trees to the point where we'll have to put them in a museum and charge $1.50 to see them, we need to remember to whom we belong and from whence we came. It was the many sun-clothed God who labored and gave birth to us through the fiery furnace of her incomprehensible love. If there are creeds, they will fall short of the mark. If there are scriptures, they cannot tell the whole story. As Paul wrote, we can but see through the glass darkly with our human eyes. Established faiths are only guides. They can never tell us the whole story. Because, my friend, the whole story is God, that vast, unknowable spread above, below, and within us. We are part of the whole, and the other part is everything else. The trees, the bears, the ants, the coral reefs, the glaciers, the rainforest, and the whales. We forget this or ignore it or break our chains of love with it at our peril and the peril of the entire world. Like the persistent woman in today's gospel, we must repeat our message of the holiness of the earth and its necessary salvation until everyone realizes that we really have only one body to wound. All of us on this beautiful spaceship earth, otherwise known as Mother Nature, our mother, our God. This is not New Age stuff. It is the substance of things hoped for and the future of our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. We must say it over and over again. Put it on a banner. Wave it over our heads. Everything is beautiful. Everything is holy. Everything is good because everything is God. And so we praise her by honoring her body in whom we live and move and have our being. So those are my reflections on the day in the scriptures, and please feel free to add your own reflections. Again, just remember the ABCs of sharing.